This is the Improve and Have Fun podcast. My name is Paul PVP Perez. On this podcast, I work on finding ways to improve myself while doing fun things along the way. One of the fun things I enjoy doing is movie and TV show reviews. And this week we have Narcos Season 3 on Netflix. I very much found the first two seasons of Narcos to be excellent. I enjoyed them very much. Pedro Pascal, Wagner Moura, Boyd Holbrook, all really tremendous on this TV show. One of the biggest strengths of this TV show, it being on Netflix, it can be brutal, it can be graphic, and the acting, I think, is the key thing about this show that kind of hooks you. The acting I find in this show is incredible. Definitely Wagner Moura, the first two seasons playing Pablo Escobar. I didn't even see the actor anymore. I just saw Pablo Escobar with very limited knowledge of what happened actually in Colombia and Medellin during that time. But watching this series makes me, after the series is over, as soon as the last episode is done, I want to go online and I want to go ahead and research the true events that happened and see how close the actors look to the people that they're portraying. And that's what happened in this particular season of Narcos Season 3, which I thought was really fantastic. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to talk about my pros and cons. And my first pro, I've already mentioned it, with this whole series, seasons 1, 2, and 3, the acting is incredible. It really is incredible. The actors that they choose as well, a lot of them I've never even seen before. And to think that this is a series where a lot of it is in Spanish and it's subtitled as well, it just instantly hooks me. It really does. See, I'm Dominican. Parents are from the Dominican Republic. I was born here. And a lot of times in different Spanish countries, different words are used. And they are used in different contexts. So I don't always understand exactly all the words that they're saying. But I always see the series, any TV I try to watch with subtitles on. I just really want to get what they're saying. So a lot of these actors I didn't know. But there were so many standout performances. That's my other pro right there. So many stand-up performances from the actors who played Bacho, the actors who played the Orejuela brothers. I'm seeing the IMDb page now, one being Francisco Dennis, he played Miguel, and Damien Alcazar, he played Gilberto. And the guy who played Chepe, for me Chepe was a standout. Even if he wasn't in a lot of the series, anytime he was on screen, I really felt like this guy should be feared. He was played by an actor called Pepe Rapazote. And also, there were a lot of cameos. Like, I saw Edward James Olmos was in the series. He was Javier Peña's father in the show. Also, actors from Boardwalk Empire, like Shea Wiggum, he was in there as well. Gabriel Iglesias. So a lot of small cameos. They weren't in the series a long period of time, but a lot of small cameos here and there. So that was really cool. And old characters returning, like the gentleman, like Los Pepes, in terms of the two brothers, and the other gentleman who ended up becoming now the cocaine kingpin of Medellin, who was in cahoots with Javier Peña for a period of time. That was cool. There were times when it was very intense and very thriller aspects in the show, kind of like making you kind of just be anxious as to what's going to happen next, which is another pro. And as I mentioned before, actor-wise, the two that stood out in the show for me were Pacho and Chepe. And that made out the four of, you have the Orejuela brothers, who are the two main villains in the show, the two brothers, and then you have Pacho and you have Chepe. And anytime, Pacho was a smooth dude. Anytime that he would come to a situation, people were getting killed almost. So, and some honorable mentions. The soundtrack, they had some, since this show, this particular season takes place during the 90s, the soundtrack was cool. They had songs from Mobb Deep, from Wu-Tang, several songs from both of those groups. And I also wanted to mention some of the lower characters in the Rodriguez gang. Not lower in performance, but just lower in terms of their status. And the whole side story with Jorge trying to get his family out, awesome. The rivalry that he had with Miguel's son, the actor who played David as well, he was another fantastic high for this show. Navegante, who was shown before in previous seasons, where when this guy shows up, another guy, where he appears somebody's gonna get killed. A very, very high level of intensity when this guy shows up. And finally, I wanted to mention Palomari, who was the accountant, who was really, really funny in the show, actually. So wanted to give those gentlemen some honorable mentions. But now, let's go ahead and get into my cons. This particular season didn't feel as violent as the last two seasons with Pablo Escobar. Not on a street level. This was more kind of on a corporate level. There was some street level violence, but not as much as the first two seasons of Narcos, definitely. The villains in this particular season were not as charismatic as Pablo Escobar either, I felt. I mean, Gilberto, definitely, he was always smiling and, and just kind of having almost like a party vibe about him and just being very inclusive. But Miguel was just very straight and almost like kind of playing it straight, and then he became unhinged at later episodes. And he was a little dangerous, but on a very quiet level. So they weren't as charismatic as Pablo Escobar in season 3. But the villains, they were good. Like I said, Chepe and Pacho were my favorites. And the final con, like I said, I only had 3 cons because I very much enjoyed this show. Was the only episode that really dragged for me was episode 3. Episode 3 definitely felt slow, but the other episodes were fine. After 6 and on, it just breezes by. After episode 6, it just, you can snap your fingers and it's over, because all of the events that happen from 6 and on is just crazy. But 1 and 2 were fine, and 4 and 5 were fine. Like I said, 3 was the one that I really felt like I was like looking at the clock and like I was a little bored. But overall, I very much enjoyed the show. I very much recommend Narcos as a whole series so far. I'm telling you, this series altogether is phenomenal, and let's go Emmys for this show. Like I said, the acting on here is freaking incredible. So that's my review for Narcos. Definitely recommending it. And that's the end of this episode. Talk with you soon.